On a relentlessly rainy night, a young man fought tooth and nail against a group of armed assailants. Cornered and desperate, Hyun-soo targeted their weaknesses, breaking through their encirclement and sprinting onto the street. He fumbled for something in his chest and put it in his mouth, but was struck by a speeding delivery truck. Hyun-soo, critically injured, collapsed to the ground. His hand reached towards his ringing phone, a call from his grandmother, but he was too weak to answer. He was a senior at the police university. Ultimately, Hyun-soo died that stormy night, his blood staining the street, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a brewing vendetta. Years later, during police university entrance interviews, the interviewer asked applicants why they wanted to join the force. Most candidates offered rehearsed, cliched answers about duty and mission, filled with forced enthusiasm. One interviewer stifled yawns from boredom. Only Yoon Kang was forthright. She confessed that becoming a police officer hadn't been a childhood dream. Her aspirations had flitted from pop star to restaurant owner, each a fleeting fancy. Then, in high school, her mother hired a tutor, the son of a friend. His good looks captivated her. Learning he planned to apply to the police university, the fickle Yoon Kang instantly shifted her own ambitions to match his. Nothing motivates like young love. But Yoon Kang didn't reveal this girlish crush during the formal interview. While admitting she was motivated by someone, she abruptly switched the protagonist to the bald interviewer, Professor Cha. She claimed Professor Cha's investigative records had made him her idol. This flattery hit the mark. Professor Cha beamed, clearly impressed. After the interview, Yoon Kang called her mother, confident her plan had worked. She then took a photo with the police university as a backdrop. A young man accidentally wandered into the frame. His name was Seung Hyun, also an applicant interviewing that day. That evening, Seung Hyun met up with friends. One friend, bragging about buying his girlfriend a designer bag, turned to discover he'd been metaphorically cuckolded. Everyone had witnessed his girlfriend strolling arm in arm with another man. Determined to investigate, Seung Hyun and his friend followed the couple to a hotel room. They barged in after ringing the doorbell, creating an excruciatingly awkward scene with all four people in the same room. Caught red-handed, the girlfriend, unconcerned, launched into a furious argument with her boyfriend right there in the hallway. She'd been planning to dump her poor boyfriend anyway. But Seung Hyun, on the side of righteousness, wouldn't stand for his friend's humiliation. He delivered a lecture on legal rights, criticizing the girl for accepting expensive gifts and then cheating. Just then, Yoon Kang, sent by her mother to deliver chicken, happened upon the scene. Seeing Seung Hyun berating her older sister, she rushed to her defense, engaging in a heated argument with him. As their quarrel escalated, the other cheated boyfriend joined the fray. It turned out he too had been deceived. He grabbed Yoon Kang's arm, demanding to know why she'd lied to him. Seeing Yoon Kang bullied, the righteous Seung Hyun intervened, scolding the man for his public display of aggression. Unexpectedly, the man punched Seung Hyun. Yoon Kang seized the opportunity to pull her sister away from the chaotic scene. Back home, Yoon Kang urged her sister to return the gifts. Though she defended her sister publicly, she couldn't condone her behavior. Her sister retorted that she, too, had given expensive gifts and that they had broken up long ago. This didn't sit right with Yoon Kang. Knowing her sister had no savings, the only possibility was that she'd stolen Yoon Kang's money. Her suspicions were confirmed. A furious fight erupted, but their parents sided with her sister, stubbornly demanding Yoon Kang apologize. Frustrated and upset, Yoon Kang stormed out, buying an ice cream to cool off. Halfway down the street, she bumped into Ju Chan, dressed in his police uniform. Yoon Kang's anger instantly melted into rosy bubbles. She trailed after him like a love-struck puppy, and Ju Chan kindly walked her home. Before leaving, he gave her candy and wished her luck on getting into the police university. Encouraged by Ju Chan, Yoon Kang studied even harder. But on results day, her hopeful anticipation turned to crushing disappointment when she saw she hadn't been accepted. While some mourned, others celebrated. Seung Hyun, having placed first, had gained admission to the police university. His overjoyed mother immediately called his father, who, it turned out, was the chief of the Eastern Police Bureau. Rather than exuberant celebration, he cautioned his wife to be discreet, not wanting Seung Hyun's influential connection revealed. The newly admitted cadets faced the grueling crucible of intensive training, notorious for its demanding nature. As was tradition, many cadets dropped out, unable to withstand the rigorous program. The first day's training under the scorching sun left everyone exhausted. Finally, as the sun set, the cadets were dismissed to their dorms. But the upperclassmen conducted a surprise inspection. Even those showering had to immediately rinse off, standing at attention by their beds. Responses to the upperclassmen's commands had to be sharp and forceful, as if molding the new recruits into hardened steel. The immense pressure proved too much for some. So Yeon, one of the female cadets, felt unwell. The next day, So Yeon struggled during training. Repeatedly making mistakes during roll call, she was punished with push-ups. Unable to complete the strenuous exercise, her face paled, and she broke out in a cold sweat. Unable to bear the training officer's callous indifference, Seung Hyun bravely spoke up, suggesting So Yeon was unwell and shouldn't be pushed so hard. The officer coldly responded, "If you're not feeling well, go rest." While seemingly considerate, the words were a thinly veiled threat. If So Yeon rested, she'd fail the intensive training. So Yeon insisted she was fine and could complete the exercises. But Seung Hyun persisted, arguing, "In this environment, who would dare admit they're unwell?" The officer recognized Seung Hyun as a potential troublemaker. He lectured him about a police officer's duty, asking, "Should a police officer refuse to save someone because they're feeling unwell?" Seung Hyun countered, "If a police officer is sick, who will protect them?" The two were now at odds. That evening, Seung Hyun's dorm mates discussed the incident. While admiring his courage, they worried he'd antagonize the officer, inviting future trouble and potentially jeopardizing them as well. The unspoken fear hung heavy in the air. Later, as Seung Hyun walked down the hallway, he passed the training officer. The officer stopped him, answering Seung Hyun's earlier question. "As a police officer, you have no protection, only the strength you build yourself. The police university requires this intense training. If someone can't handle it, they can leave." The next day, So Yeon, unwilling to burden others, withdrew from the university due to her illness. After seeing her off, her roommates stared at the empty bed, wondering who would fill it. Meanwhile, at her high school graduation ceremony, Yoon Kang was still lamenting her rejection. Suddenly, she received a call from the police university. A spot had opened up, and she was instructed to report the next day. Overjoyed, Yoon Kang grabbed her family and danced in celebration. The following day, Yoon Kang arrived at the female dormitory. With the other cadets in training, she opened the window, enjoying the fresh air. The aroma of food wafted from the cafeteria across the way. Excited, she headed downstairs for a meal. On the way, she brushed shoulders with a young man, dropping her gloves. He helped her retrieve them. Looking up, she recognized him as the man who had defended his friend. Yoon Kang was struck by the strange coincidence. Seung Hyun, however, was not pleased to see her. He brought up her sister's transgression, insisting she apologize to his friend. Annoyed by his sharp words, Yoon Kang's temper flared. Fortunately, a senior called him away, interrupting their escalating argument. After training, Yoon Kang met her roommates, excitedly sharing her unexpected acceptance. They cautioned her against premature celebration, reminding her she hadn't yet endured the grueling training. One roommate, Han Na, remained aloof and unresponsive during their conversations, a constant outsider. They all hoped to avoid being roommates with her after the intensive training period. In stark contrast to her social detachment, Han Na was actively engaged in class. During a lecture on the cultural background of the police university, she eagerly answered questions. As the class ended, everyone stretched, agreeing that running would be preferable to that lecture. Suddenly, a stern voice boomed from the back of the classroom. The training officer stepped forward, demanding, "Those who were dozing, stand up." Several cadets sheepishly rose. Yoon Kang, however, looked around, hoping to avoid detection, unaware that the senior behind her had witnessed her near slumber. Her denial earned her a scolding and a trip outside for punishment along with the other sleepy cadets. After a round of disciplinary exercises, the officer singled out Yoon Kang, asking her to reflect on her wrongdoing. Undeterred, she insisted she hadn't been sleeping and that the officer had misunderstood. But within the university walls, the words of the officers and seniors were law. Even if unjustly accused, obedience was expected. Yoon Kang clenched her fists, seething with resentment. On a bookshelf in the classroom, a faint red light blinked from a book spine. A hidden camera had recorded the entire disciplinary scene. That night, hunger gnawed at the male cadets in the dormitory. One mentioned seeing a stockpile of ramen in the food storage room, tempting their rumbling stomachs. They decided to sneak a late-night snack. Just as they stepped out of the dorm, they ran into a patrol. Defeated, they retreated, their culinary aspirations thwarted. The next day, the cadets attended judo class. D-Il, seated in the middle, was inevitably chosen as the demonstration dummy, enduring a painful throw. To illustrate different techniques, the instructor then called on the towering Kim Tak. Unexpectedly, Kim Tak proved to be a judo expert, easily overpowering the instructor with his superior strength. As the boys snickered, Yoon Kang noticed Seung Hyun among them, realizing he was a classmate. Since the incident with her sister, they had been at odds. Seung Hyun's sharp demeanor rubbed her the wrong way. When her roommates complimented his looks, she retorted, calling him petty for demanding gifts back after a breakup. At lunchtime, Yoon Kang, driven by curiosity, asked about the police academy's stance on dating within the school. Arai replied that it was strictly forbidden and, intrigued by Yoon Kang's question, inquired if she had a boyfriend at the academy. Yoon Kang vehemently denied it, but upon looking up, she spotted Ju Chan, her crush, outside the window. She hurriedly gathered her dishes, wanting to tell him about her acceptance into the academy, but he vanished in the blink of an eye. Because Yoon Kang rushed off so quickly, Arai took her forgotten jacket and waited for her in the hallway. At that moment, Arai accidentally bumped into Seung Hyun, and a strange USB-like device fell out of Yoon Kang's jacket pocket. In his office, Professor Cha, after reviewing his own television appearance, narcissistically checked the viewership ratings. However, upon opening the website, he encountered troubling news. A National Assembly member was proposing the abolition of the National Police University. This news deeply distressed the school's administration and faculty. While Professor Cha seemed resigned to fate, the psychology professor reacted dramatically, criticizing the bureaucracy of the higher-ups. Finally, the principal cautioned the two professors, with the assembly members' momentum, the university could only hope to avoid any major student infractions that could be used against them. As these words were spoken, Yoon Kang, in physical training class outside, made repeated mistakes and was called out for punishment. While performing burpees, a USB drive fell out of her jacket. The instructor immediately picked it up, plugged it into his phone, and discovered it contained footage of them disciplining students for dozing off in class. Yoon Kang was immediately questioned about secretly filming the training session. However, Yoon Kang was completely bewildered, as the USB drive wasn't hers. The act of secretly filming was a serious violation of school regulations. Without giving Yoon Kang a chance to explain, the instructor reported the incident to the disciplinary committee. If found guilty, Yoon Kang would be expelled. Before the committee meeting, Yoon Kang was isolated in the school's observation room. Though usually quick-witted, this time Yoon Kang was truly innocent. Arai, having picked up the recording device, was also incredibly uneasy. She had been holding both her own and Yoon Kang's jackets. If the USB drive wasn't hers, it must have been Yoon Kang's, which is why she had put it in Yoon Kang's pocket. In the male dormitory, activity stirred. After hearing the night patrol's footsteps fade away, one roommate was dispatched to the pantry to steal some ramen. As a gesture of apology, he left a note. While enjoying the aroma of ramen, the boys discussed Yoon Kang's situation. D-Il analyzed the situation. This wasn't simple. The assembly member wanted to abolish the school and needed justification. Yoon Kang's alleged filming could be an attempt to frame the instructor and provide ammunition for the assembly member. Upon hearing this, the other three boys decided to distance themselves from Yoon Kang, urging each other to avoid her. Only Seung Hyun raised a question: was it really Yoon Kang who filmed the footage? The instructor reported the incident to Professor Cha. Because Yoon Kang had previously clashed with him during training, he readily assumed she was the culprit. However, Professor Cha insisted on evidence. Given the circumstances, Professor Cha believed someone familiar with the school was pulling the strings. As expected, as soon as news of the potential disciplinary action spread, no one dared to speak to Yoon Kang. Desperate to clear her name, Yoon Kang sought the USB drive's owner. Avoiding the crowds, she quietly approached Arai, who had held her jacket, asking if anyone had been near it. But Arai, wanting to avoid trouble, chose to hide the truth. Yoon Kang's inquiry proved fruitless, leaving her dejected. Seung Hyun overheard their conversation. realizing Yun Kang was in trouble. That day after school, Seung Hyun approached Arai, revealing that he had seen her pick up the USB recording device from the ground and place it into Yun Kang's jacket pocket. Panicked, Arai denied it. Seung Hyun then threatened, "I gave you a chance to be honest." This statement left Arai terrified and anxious. Unable to bear the pressure, she finally confessed to putting the USB drive in Yun Kang's pocket, but claimed she didn't know who it belonged to. She tearfully pleaded with Yun Kang to keep it quiet, promising to help find the real culprit. Still furious, Yun Kang refused and stormed towards the instructor's office. Just as she was about to knock, she softened and turned back. Halfway there, she encountered Seung Hyun. He admitted that while he saw Arai put something in her jacket, he couldn't see what it was. He was merely bluffing. Seeing Seung Hyun's perceptiveness, Yun Kang felt like she had grasped a lifeline. She begged him to help her investigate. Looking at her pleading expression, Seung Hyun relented. Meanwhile, the boys in the dorm, having tasted the delicious ramen, couldn't resist the temptation. That very night, before waiting for darkness, they snuck 4 more cups of ramen. However, they were soon discovered by the cleaning lady, known as the school's Sherlock Holmes. To catch the ramen thieves, she had dusted the ramen with fluorescent powder. This led her straight to the boys' dorm. Faced with the evidence, the 3 boys knelt and confessed. At the same time, Seung Hyun and Yun Kang were in a closed room analyzing the timing of the recording device's appearance. Seung Hyun theorized that perhaps it wasn't intentionally placed in Yun Kang's jacket, but rather a case of mistaken identity. After all, everyone's jackets were jumbled together in the girls' locker room. This seemed plausible. Yun Kang recalled the scene in the locker room and finally identified Han Na. Sure enough, under the cover of night, Han Na went to a secluded area on campus and reported the missing recording device to someone. She was indeed the culprit. To investigate Han Na, Yun Kang snuck into the dormitory and began searching through Han Na's belongings, eventually discovering a charger hidden in her pillow. At that moment, Han Na returned. The sudden sound of the door opening startled Yun Kang. Han Na, switching on the light, saw Yun Kang pretending to search for something on a chair and grew suspicious. Sure enough, the charger was gone from her pillow. Yun Kang dropped the pretense and directly confronted Han Na about the filming. Han Na remained silent and lunged for the charger. Yun Kang dodged and ran straight to the instructor's office to report Han Na. Faced with Professor Cha's questioning, Han Na claimed the charger was for her phone, even taking it out to pretend to call her sick mother. But Professor Cha wasn't easily fooled. He noticed the charger's connector didn't match a phone but was identical to the recording device's. He pressed Han Na about the device's origins. When she refused to answer, he examined her phone and called the only number listed, but no one answered. Han Na explained that her mother had taken her medication and gone to sleep. Unable to get any information, Professor Cha decided to convene a disciplinary committee meeting. Han Na would have to explain herself. Earlier, a man had given Han Na the recording device and phone, instructing her to film according to his instructions and to charge the device every 8 hours. Although Han Na didn't know the reason, she obediently complied. Relieved to have found the true culprit, Yun Kang thanked Seung Hyun. As for why Han Na was filming, Yun Kang remained clueless. The next day, the disciplinary committee meeting commenced. After a night of reflection, Han Na explained her motives for filming. She felt indignant on behalf of So Yeon, who had been forced to withdraw from the academy. Believing such situations shouldn't occur, she decided to expose the instructor's disciplinary practices, hoping external pressure would lead to internal change. After hearing Han Na's explanation, the academy decided to expel her. Han Na, defiant, declared that if she was being expelled, she no longer needed to protect the academy's reputation. Taking a firm stance, she threatened to post the video online. If the disciplinary footage was released, any explanation from the academy would be futile. Professor Cha proposed rescinding the expulsion and reforming the training program, eliminating verbal abuse and physical punishment. Professor Bang objected. Kids these days are spoiled. Kind words are useless. Only force can control them. The two professors argued. Finally, the principal sided with Professor Cha. The police force's image hasn't been great lately. At this critical juncture, it's best to avoid further controversy. Ultimately, Han Na's punishment was reduced to 3 months of probation. Yun Kang felt this was unfair. How could she, innocent, almost be expelled, while Han Na, who filmed secretly, only received probation? She confronted Han Na, demanding an apology. Han Na maintained she did nothing wrong. It was a simple case of mistaken jackets, and the punishment was the academy's decision. If Yun Kang was dissatisfied, she could take it up with the principal. Yun Kang then approached the instructor, who rebuked her. Stop causing trouble and disrupting the other students. But Yun Kang only wanted one question answered: why were their punishments so different? Though the instructor privately agreed with her sentiment, he had to accept the academy's decision regarding Han Na's filming and Seung Hyun's public confrontation with him. That evening, the instructor gathered everyone in the gymnasium, intending to demonstrate disciplinary actions to the new students. Han Na, confined to campus, was alone in the observation room. A female student placed a sticky note on the door, reminding her of the 9 p.m. meeting in the gymnasium. However, the note fell to the floor and was picked up and replaced by Yun Kang. Unfortunately, Han Na was already inside and didn't see the note. Consequently, she missed the meeting and was punished with 30 laps around the gymnasium. Han Na struggled to complete the laps, collapsing upon returning to her spot and being taken to the hospital. That night, Yun Kang reconsidered the events, realizing Han Na likely hadn't seen the note. Moreover, she had heard the instructor say, "These new students need a lesson," during Han Na's punishment. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. The next morning, she reported it to the principal. Professor Bang, present during the conversation, dismissed it as a common occurrence for students to faint during training. Yun Kang argued that the evening gathering was a deliberate punishment by the instructor, and that physical punishment wouldn't create excellent police officers, only breed resentment. As Yun Kang protested the unfair training, she realized that injustices were rampant in society, far more severe than within the academy. Compared to that, the hardships of training seemed trivial. She wanted to continue arguing, but was dismissed from the office. She wanted to change the system, but felt powerless to alter the freshman's circumstances. Instead, her actions resulted in further punishment for her classmates. Yun Kang stepped forward, admitting she had reported the instructor to the principal. The instructor strode towards her and stomped on her foot. Enduring the pain, Yun Kang reiterated her complaint, protesting the instructor's abusive language and violent actions. Infuriated, the instructor was about to retaliate when Seung Hyun intervened. The training instructor punished 2 students with handstands, threatening the rest with push-ups if they failed to comply. Minutes ticked by, and the 2 remained defiant, refusing to obey. As their classmates struggled to maintain their push-up positions, Yun Kang considered giving in, but Seung Hyun's voice stopped her. He recited the Police Academy oath. As Police Academy students, we must never back down in the face of injustice. Yun Kang joined in, followed by Kim Tak and her roommate. More and more students rose, reciting the oath and refusing the instructor's order. For the next 2 days, the students boycotted all training and signed a petition. News of the protest reached reporters outside the academy. Faced with this situation, the academy president decided to reform the intensive training program. The students cheered Yun Kang's name, celebrating the successful protest and the overturning of the harsh training regime. The screening process was abandoned, and all students were promoted to the National Police University. That evening, the new students and instructors dined together. Yun Kang's eyes followed Ju Chan, who was surrounded by female students. When he left the room, she followed him, only to witness him acting intimately with a female instructor. Heartbroken, Yun Kang crumpled to the ground, accidentally revealing herself to Ju Chan. He called her name, and she, fighting back tears, pretended to have stumbled upon them by chance. Ju Chan, his secret relationship exposed, begged Yun Kang to keep quiet to avoid repercussions from the academy. Though devastated, she agreed with a forced smile. Thus, on her first day as a police cadet, her romantic dreams about Ju Chan shattered. Dejected, Yun Kang returned to her room and drowned her sorrows in beer. Regardless of who was drinking, she would grab the bottle back, determined to finish it. After a few drinks, she became incredibly drunk and started acting out, causing a scene. Fortunately, the attentive Seung Hyun took care of her, cleaning up her mess and carrying her back to the dormitory. The next day, Yun Kang woke up with a hangover and, predictably, was late for class. Professor Cha punished her with a written apology, and the training instructor deliberately gave her a hard time. After class, Yoon Kang apologized to Seung Hyun, worried she had done something embarrassing while drunk. Although Seung Hyun didn't say anything, Yoon Kang felt she had forgotten something important. As the new students began their university life, dormitory assignments were reshuffled. Yoon Kang and Han Na were assigned to the same room. Because Yoon Kang's protest led to the cancellation of the intensive training, Han Na's punishment was also revoked. However, Professor Cha remained curious about the source of Han Na's phone. Han Na remained silent on the matter. She came from a single-parent family, her mother a sex worker, and was bullied by other female students. Finally snapping, she attacked the ringleader with a branch, injuring her. The girl's family dragged Han Na to the police station, hurling insults. Officer Nam Gi intervened, resolving the situation without leaving a blemish on Han Na's record. The two became acquainted. Han Na dreamt of becoming a police officer and applied to the academy. Nam Gi asked her to secretly film the new recruits' training sessions. He was investigating corruption within the police academy, a case involving Chairman Jo, Seung Hyun's father. In the first episode, a fourth-year student, Kim Hyun-soo, is revealed to have died during the investigation of this same corruption case. When Yoon Kang arrived at the dorm room, Han Na had already unpacked. The atmosphere between them was incredibly awkward. Han Na requested absolute silence in the dorm, suggesting Yoon Kang communicate through written notes. They lived together but barely spoke. Feeling suffocated, Yoon Kang went to the library to write a report and accidentally saw Ju Chan sitting with the female instructor. As she turned to leave, her foot caught on a wire, sending her tumbling to the floor. In an instant, all eyes in the library were on her. Seung Hyun solicitously followed Yoon Kang, offering her a band-aid. Feeling helpless, Yoon Kang realized that life at the police academy wasn't what she had imagined, and she even contemplated dropping out. Annoyed, Seung Hyun lectured Yoon Kang about inciting the others to rebel while wanting to run away herself. After his reprimand, he left, recalling the night Yoon Kang, drunk, had confessed her love for Ju Chan. The weekend arrived quickly, allowing the cadets to visit their families. Seung Hyun was dragged by a friend to a blind date. On the way, they encountered a robbery and chased after the perpetrator. Seung Hyun pursued on his bike, but remained a distance behind. Suddenly, a blonde-haired girl appeared, tackling the robber. He pulled out a weapon, but Seung Hyun arrived just in time. That blonde girl, it turned out, was Yoon Kang, who had been coerced into dyeing her hair by her older sister. Back home, Yoon Kang reflected on her life, how her parents always favored her sister, making her feel like a clown. But at the police academy, she discovered she could inspire and help others, earning their gratitude. This feeling made her want to stay, and she resolved to persevere at the academy. Seung Hyun greeted Yoon Kang's return to the academy with a smile, her hair back to its natural color. During a meal, Yoon Kang noticed Han Na sitting alone and offered her some food. The next day, Yoon Kang confessed her feelings to Ju Chan, hoping to put an end to her unrequited love and start fresh. Nearby, Seung Hyun smiled, but first love isn't easily forgotten. To move on from Ju Chan, Yoon Kang tried to quit his duo club. However, Ju Chan preemptively blocked her attempt. Left with no choice, Yoon Kang remained in the club. During practice, as club president, Ju Chan's performance captivated Yoon Kang, sparking jealousy in Seung Hyun. He challenged Ju Chan, only to be outmatched and nearly choked unconscious, refusing to admit defeat. Walking back from class, Seung Hyun asked Yoon Kang about her plans for the next 4 years. She had decided to stay at the academy, but remained undecided about becoming a police officer. Magnolia blossoms caught Yoon Kang's attention, and she excitedly asked Seung Hyun to take her picture. His photography skills left much to be desired, prompting Yoon Kang to tease, "You've clearly never been in love." That day, a Rise group organized a blind date, but only she, Ju Young, and Yoon Kang participated, still needing one more girl. Yoon Kang considered inviting Han Na, but she remained aloof, coldly rejecting the offer. On the day of the blind date, the 3 girls dressed impeccably, stunning D-Il as he walked by. At lunchtime, he told his roommates about Arai and Yoon Kang's beautiful attire for their blind date. This news unsettled Seung Hyun, who restlessly paced the dorm, trying to find out what Yoon Kang was doing. He finally came up with a flimsy excuse, calling Yoon Kang about the yogurt she left in the communal refrigerator. Yoon Kang, having finished the blind date, was now sitting with a high-quality prospect. Seung Hyun's call ruined the mood. After a few curt words, Yoon Kang hung up. Already irritated, Seung Hyun became even more annoyed and went to the cafeteria with Kim Tak to vent his frustration through food. Halfway through their meal, they were joined by 3 upperclassmen, creating an awkward atmosphere. Seung Hyun and Kim Tak excused themselves. Back at the dorm, Seung Hyun entered a beer club and witnessed a part-time student being harassed by a group of thugs. This provided an outlet for his pent-up frustration. He intervened, but they were outnumbered. Luckily, Kim Tak, the duo expert, was with him. After a fierce fight, the thugs fled. At that moment, Hyun Suk, the upperclassman from earlier, entered, feigning concern for his fellow students and urging Seung Hyun and Kim Tak to leave quickly to avoid retaliation. In reality, Hyun Suk was the leader of the thugs. He maintained a completely different persona at school, appearing friendly and gentle to others, while secretly cheating on exams using his phone under the desk. Coincidentally, Seung Hyun caught him in the act. After the exam, Hyun Suk called Seung Hyun aside, feigning sincerity, and explained that he had only taken out his phone because a senior in the Wi-Fi club had sent him an urgent message, asking Seung Hyun to keep it quiet. Seung Hyun chose to believe him. D-Il and Kim Tak both performed poorly on the exam. To salvage their grades, they participated in a special activity organized by the school, volunteering at an orphanage. On the bus back, Arai complained to her senior, Wi-Fi club member Ayang, insisting she hadn't made a mistake on her order. She had sent him a message explaining the situation on the day of the exam, but Ayang claimed his phone was being repaired that day, and he hadn't received it. Seung Hyun overheard this conversation. If Ayang didn't have his phone on the day of the exam, then Hyun Suk's phone use during the exam couldn't have been to check a message from Ayang. It was undoubtedly cheating. Realizing he'd been deceived, Seung Hyun confronted Hyun Suk upon returning to school, revealing his knowledge of the cheating. He urged Hyun Suk to confess to the instructor. Faced with Seung Hyun's plea, Hyun Suk's true nature emerged. He threatened Seung Hyun with the video of him and Kim Tak fighting the thugs, warning him not to interfere. But Hyun Suk misjudged Seung Hyun's character. As Hyun Suk smugly walked away, Seung Hyun shouted after him, "You will face the consequences for your actions." Seung Hyun then went to the student council, intending to confess to the fight. However, he hesitated, thinking of Kim Tak. Troubled, he walked to the school gate and ran into Yoon Kang returning from her date. They sat at a convenience store outside the school, sharing their worries. While walking, they encountered Hyun Suk. Seung Hyun felt a surge of resentment at Hyun Suk's pretense of concern for Yoon Kang. That night, a mysterious person sent an anonymous letter to the student council regarding Hyun Suk's cheating. The next day, Hyun Suk was reprimanded by the instructor, but he used his eloquence to deflect the accusation, claiming it was a false accusation. He immediately made a call to plot his revenge against Seung Hyun. Soon after, a post appeared on the school forum, showing the video of Seung Hyun and Kim Tak fighting at the beer club. The student council was furious, but Seung Hyun explained they had acted to protect the part-time student. However, when the student was questioned, he lied, claiming Seung Hyun had started the fight. Kim Tak was incredulous. He asked Hyun Suk for help, as he had also been present that night. At this, Seung Hyun revealed Hyun Suk's true colors to Kim Tak, pointing out that the online video was identical to the one Hyun Suk had shown him, implying Hyun Suk was the one who leaked it. Although the school deleted the video, it was reposted by others, including Han Na. She sent the video to Nam Gi, who had instructed her to keep a close eye on Seung Hyun. Later, the thugs filed a police report, with Yi Jae-han accusing Seung Hyun of using his father's position to bully others. Their aim was to get him expelled. However, unaware of the tense relationship between the government and the police force, the situation escalated into a public relations battle between the police academy and the public. The academy president ordered Professor Cha to uncover the truth and protect the National Police University's reputation. Yoon Kang, D-Il, and their friends began their own investigation, staking out the part-time student's neighborhood, waiting until nightfall. While out buying food, D-Il rescues a high school student being bullied. It turns out to be the younger brother of Yun Kai, a college student. Moments later, Yun Kai appears. Yoon Kang and D-Il step forward to explain who they are. But upon hearing this, Yun Kai takes off running. After a chase, Yun Kang finally corners him in an alley. But when Yun Kang urges him to tell the truth about the situation, Yun Kai responds with resentment. For someone who's bullied like me, telling the truth only makes life harder. Because you don't have family and friends to protect you, you can only tuck your tail between your legs and endure it. Yun Kang retorts, if Yun Kai agrees to fight back, she and Seung Hyun will help. But Yun Kai scoffs, easy for you to say, what can a couple of college students do? Before leaving, Yun Kang throws a piece of paper written by Seung Hyun into Yun Kai's house. It reads, you are not alone. Seung Hyun will make sure many people come to protect you. The younger brother D-Il had rescued also speaks up, saying these college students are good people who want to help them. After some internal struggle, Yun Kai chooses to trust them. The next day, he goes to school with Yun Kang. Professor Cha has called a reporter. He hands over the video he recorded to the reporter. The video reveals the whole truth of the incident. The bullies had picked up some lost money first, which is why Seung Hyun had stood up for him. As Yun Kai and Seung Hyun leave school, he spots Hyun Suk and tells Seung Hyun a deeper secret about him. He's actually in cahoots with the bullies. That evening, Seung Hyun confronts the bullies, using the video he has of the incident at the beer club to warn them that they will face legal consequences. Scared, the bullies immediately call Hyun Suk. This call is recorded by Kim Tak's phone, which he intentionally left at the scene. At the same time, the club discovers that Hyun Suk has been exploiting his position, embezzling money through school orders. With a series of wrongdoings exposed, the school is forced to expel him according to its regulations. After the storm has passed, the group of college students goes on a picnic. They discuss, if Seung Hyun didn't report Hyun Suk's fraud, who did? A flashback reveals that the mysterious person who sent the anonymous tip was Han Na. Meanwhile, Yun Kang breaks up with her boyfriend because their relationship lacks a spark. That same day, Yun Kang and Seung Hyun go to a shooting range. Seung Hyun gently stands behind her, whispering instructions to help her. In that moment, Yun Kang's heart unconsciously races. The missing spark seems to ignite. Seung Hyun's guidance and focused attention have hit the bullseye of Yun Kang's heart. The missing spark of romance seems to ignite at this moment. After firing a shot, Yun Kang turns around, making eye contact with Seung Hyun. The air is thick with unspoken feelings. They slowly move closer. Yun Kang, full of anticipation, closes her eyes. Ultimately, Seung Hyun, to cover his own awkwardness, pretends to remove an eyelash from her face. At 3 a.m., an announcement blares throughout the school. All freshmen gather at the stadium. All the sleeping freshmen scramble to get dressed. But the assembly is pointless, serving only to test the freshmen's responsiveness. Anyone not dressed properly has points deducted from their record. Almost all the freshmen lose points due to the surprise assembly. Out of a total of 100 points, Yun Kang loses nearly 70. While she's still upset about this, D-Il tells her some news. In a few days, it's the Grand School Sports Festival. If you win, all members will receive 100 points to compensate for the deducted points. The rules of the sports festival involve dividing students into large teams to compete in various events. Unfortunately, as freshmen, Yun Kang and her friends have no say in the team assignments. Teams are divided based on dormitory room numbers. When the teams are announced, Seung Hyun is overjoyed to see that he and Yun Kang are on the same team. According to the rules, male students in the same group will help train the female students. Yun Kang plans to be in the same group as Seung Hyun, but Seung Hyun, due to Ju Chan's meddling, ends up partnered with Han Na, a pairing with terrible chemistry. After class, Professor Cha calls Kim Tak into his office. Upon inquiring about Kim Tak's family background, he discovers that Kim Tak is related to the student who dropped out because of an incident 10 years prior. He is the younger brother of Kim Hyun Soo. Professor Cha is shocked. 10 years ago, Professor Cha was a narcotics officer. He recruited Kim Hyun Soo, who was about to graduate, for an anti-drug operation, which resulted in Kim Hyun Soo's death. At the time, Seung Hyun's father was the head of the narcotics unit. To avoid responsibility, he claimed the narcotics unit had nothing to do with the student. This incident disillusioned Professor Cha with the police system, leading him to submit his resignation. On the day of the training assistants, The perceptive Kim Tak volunteers to switch with Seung Hyun and partner with Han Na. He had realized Yoon Kang wanted to train with Seung Hyun, and so Seung Hyun asks Yoon Kang out. The two ride bicycles, starting their training for the three-person cycling event. They ride along a mountain road behind the school. As they pick up speed, the gentle breeze makes them both feel at ease, turning the training session into something resembling a date. During a break, they sit by the lake and chat. Seung Hyun says his father is a police officer, and he also wants to follow in his footsteps. Yoon Kang shares that she has been neglected by her parents since childhood, and only gaining admission to the police academy changed their perception of her. Hearing this, Seung Hyun encourages her not to give up, urging them both to become true police officers. The next day, Seung Hyun's father, the chief of police, comes to the police academy to give a speech. Afterwards, while chatting with the principal, he unexpectedly learns about Seung Hyun and Kim Tak's incident at the beer club. He seeks out his son, warning him to choose his friends carefully and avoid those who cause trouble. But Seung Hyun doesn't listen. While D-Il and his friends are sneaking some fried chicken, they overhear a senior mentioning that the chief of police is Seung Hyun's father. D-Il immediately realizes he must maintain good relations with someone destined for promotion like Seung Hyun. That evening, he buys Seung Hyun a meal as a bribe and, along with Bum Ju, forces a brotherhood pact with Seung Hyun and Kim Tak, exchanging 4 rings. It's time to go home for the weekend. As soon as Han Na arrives, her mother tells her she's in trouble with a customer at the karaoke bar and has begged Nam Gi for help, leaving Han Na extremely embarrassed. She's always been distressed by her mother's reliance on Nam Gi. So, Han Na seeks out Nam Gi and tells him to stop helping her family. She doesn't want to be his puppet anymore, she just wants her own life. Yoon Kang and Ju Chan go to her family's chicken restaurant. Yoon Kang's father welcomes him warmly and tries to set him up with Mai Kang. But Mai Kang immediately reveals Yoon Kang's secret crush on Ju Chan. Hearing this, her parents quickly switch tactics, now trying to set up Yoon Kang and Ju Chan. After all, either daughter is still their daughter. After the meal, as Ju Chan walks Yoon Kang home, he reveals that he's broken up with his girlfriend. Seeing Ju Chan heartbroken, Yoon Kang sits with him in the park to talk. Meanwhile, D-Il calls Seung Hyun to tell him he's attending a farewell party for a female training instructor. She's decided to drop out of the academy and study abroad, and she's also broken up with her boyfriend. Upon hearing this, Seung Hyun realizes this instructor is Ju Chan's girlfriend. He immediately calls Yoon Kang. Unexpectedly, just as Yoon Kang leaves to use the restroom, Ju Chan answers Seung Hyun's call. Learning that Ju Chan, freshly single, is now sitting with Yoon Kang, Seung Hyun feels uneasy, worried she might still have lingering feelings for him. The next day, while Yoon Kang and Seung Hyun are training, Ju Chan approaches and invites Yoon Kang for drinks that night. Seung Hyun, on high alert, interjects, "I'm free tonight too, can I come along?" But Yoon Kang knows Ju Chan wants to talk to her privately, so she politely declines Seung Hyun's request. That evening, Seung Hyun tries to study in his dorm, but can't focus, preoccupied with Yoon Kang's meeting with Ju Chan. Unable to bear the anxiety alone, he leaves campus and goes to nearby bars, searching for them. He eventually finds them at a bar. Seeing him, Ju Chan enthusiastically invites him to join their table. When Yoon Kang goes to the restroom, Ju Chan and Seung Hyun enter a silent battle. Ju Chan asks Seung Hyun to take good care of Yoon Kang, which Seung Hyun rebuffs. "That's a strange request. You're not her boyfriend, are you?" In truth, ever since receiving Seung Hyun's call yesterday, Ju Chan has sensed Seung Hyun's feelings for Yoon Kang. Newly single and emotionally vulnerable, he now sees Yoon Kang, who has been patiently by his side, as a source of comfort. He wants to pursue her to forget his heartbreak. Ju Chan seizes the opportunity, taking a call and moving towards the restroom to intercept Yoon Kang before Seung Hyun can confess. However, as they talk, Seung Hyun is within earshot. He hears Yoon Kang say, "I like you too." This devastates Seung Hyun, who immediately turns and leaves, missing the crucial next part of her sentence. After confessing her liking for Ju Chan, Yoon Kang adds, "But right now, I only see you as a senior. I already like someone else." That night, Seung Hyun disappears without a word and doesn't answer Yoon Kang's calls. While calling him and walking back to her dorm, Yoon Kang accidentally injures her leg. A few days later, the Grand School Sports Festival begins. During the running event, Yoon Kang's injury causes her visible pain. Seung Hyan, watching closely from the sidelines, notices this and asks her about the injury after the race. Yoon Kang dismisses it as nothing serious and tells him, "I have something to tell you after the festival." The competition is fierce, even involving the principal and Professor Cha. Seung Hyan, on the blue team, emerges victorious in a testosterone-fueled mud fight against the red team, led by their instructor. He and his teammates then wait at the training ground, anticipating Yoon Kang's team's success in the combined event. According to the drone footage, Yoon Kang is currently in first place in the triathlon. However, her injured leg remains a hidden risk. To make matters worse, as they reached the long mountain running section, it started pouring rain. Yoon Kang's drone crashed, and the slippery mud caused her to fall, injuring her leg. She was forced to limp the rest of the way. Just then, Han Na came by. Yoon Kang quickly asked for help, but Han Na coldly bypassed her and continued on. Seeing this, Yoon Kang couldn't hold back any longer and brought up the hidden camera incident again. She was clearly the victim, yet she found herself pleading with Han Na. "Why do you hate me so much?" Yoon Kang asked. Han Na coldly replied, "Because around you, I always feel like the bad guy. That's why I hate you." However, after walking away, Han Na returned and helped Yoon Kang up, saying that after this, they would be even. Eventually, a member of the red team reached the finish line first. Other team members gradually arrived, but there was still no sign of Yoon Kang and Han Na. Remembering Yoon Kang's injured leg, Seung Hyan began to worry. Just as he was about to go look for them, he saw Han Na carrying Yoon Kang down the mountain, step by painstaking step. Seeing Yoon Kang injured, everyone rushed over, but she insisted on finishing the race. Leaning on Han Na, she continued. People from the other teams cheered them on. When they finally reached the finish line, everyone applauded. Han Na, breathing heavily, sat down. Someone praised her for not abandoning her teammate in a critical moment. This caused the usually aloof Han Na to burst into tears. Yoon Kang, with everyone watching, extended her hand in reconciliation towards Han Na, hoping they could let go of their animosity and start over as friends. Seung Hyan smiled knowingly. Yoon Kang wouldn't leave anyone behind, that's why he liked her. That night, during the post-competition talent show, Seung Hyan performed. Afterward, he asked Yoon Kang to meet him at a distant phone booth and asked if she had anything to say to him. Yoon Kang stammered, barely getting out the word "like" before Seung Hyan confessed his feelings and kissed her. Then, Yoon Kang replied, "The person I like is you, Seung Hyan." That night, many unspoken relationships began to break through their barriers. Kim Tak and Arai's mutual crush also started to become more apparent, though Kim Tak hadn't yet given a definitive answer. Han Na finally made a friend at school. She texted Nam Gi, telling him she wouldn't help him with anything anymore. The next day, Ju Young bought a long-desired gaming console and unboxed it during a live stream with D-Il and her best friend. However, it turned out to be a scam. The package contained nothing but wires. D-Il told Seung Hyan and Kim Tak about it. Ju Young had reported it to the police, but they said this type of scam, using burner numbers, was difficult to trace. Victims of online fraud often had to just accept the loss. Everyone dutifully returned to their studies. That day's lesson involved a practical crime scene investigation. Faced with a series of misleading clues, almost all the students suspected the victim's boyfriend. Only Seung Hyan noticed a small trail of blood leading down the hallway. Professor Cha was very pleased with his attentiveness, saying, "The police who handled this case years ago didn't have such a keen eye." As a result, the boyfriend was wrongly convicted and spent 3 years in prison. It wasn't until the family demanded a reinvestigation that his name was cleared. Professor Cha used this story to teach his students. The 3 key elements to investigate at a crime scene are blood, sweat, and tears. Not a single drop of blood should be overlooked. Sweat is shed everywhere, and tears are wiped away by the victim's family. As long as you investigate diligently and don't give up, the truth will be revealed. Professor Cha's words greatly encouraged Ju Young. After class, she called D-Il and Bum Ju, determined to catch the scammer herself. Ju Young started by tracing the shipping route of the package. The weekend arrived again, and Seung Hyun and Yoon Kang rode the school bus together. On the bus, they held hands whenever they got the chance, their affection sickeningly sweet. After getting off the bus, Seung Hyun, wanting to spend time with Yoon Kang, declined a senior's invitation to dinner. However, Yoon Kang worried this would offend the senior, so she urged him to go and make a brief appearance, promising to meet him later. Meanwhile, Arai attended a lecture by the popular Jo Han-sol. After the lecture, Jo Han-sol went to a small restaurant and paid for a group of middle-aged men. It turned out they were members of the Sinil Society, alumni of the police university now working in various levels of government. Seung Hyun's father was among them. That evening, Seung Hyun drank with his seniors. By the time they finished, Yoon Kang had already left. She sent him a message saying she was going ahead and included her address. Unexpectedly, Seung Hyun showed up at her door in the middle of the night with her favorite tteokbokki. Watching Yoon Kang eat happily, he slowly drifted off to sleep. Seeing this, she brought him inside and let him sleep in her room. Early the next morning, under Yoon Kang's cover, Seung Hyun managed to avoid her sister and mother. However, just as he reached the door, Yoon Kang's father caught him red-handed. They were forced back inside and subjected to her parents' questioning. With his disheveled appearance, Seung Hyun couldn't come up with a believable excuse. Yoon Kang simply admitted they had slept in the same room. As the atmosphere grew awkward, Mai Kang spoke up. She remembered how Seung Hyun had caused the scene with Yoon Kang because of his ex-boyfriend. She declared that they hated each other and would never date, which, although completely inaccurate, managed to preserve their reputations. Elsewhere, Nam-gi, after receiving Han Na's message, arranged to meet her. Filled with resentment, he began to tell her about the corruption within the police university. But Han Na immediately cut him off. She didn't want to hear it anymore. She didn't want to be influenced by him. She thanked him for his past concern and care, then stood up and left. After Han Na left, Professor Cha, who had been sitting nearby, sat down in front of Nam-gi. He tried to persuade him to let Han Na go. "I'm a teacher. I have a duty to protect my students," he said. But Nam-gi was blunt, bringing up Kim Tak's brother, Kim Hyun-soo. He challenged the professor. Why didn't you protect him back then? Hitting a nerve, Professor Cha admitted to his past weakness and inaction. It was because of that regret that he now strived to protect his other students. Professor Cha knew Nam-gi resented the Sinil group within the police force. But he told him, it won't be them who dismantles the Sinil group, but the young people growing up within the police academy. Ju Young, D-il, and Bum Ju went to the shipping depot. They began visiting hundreds of convenience stores, searching for the exact location where the package was sent. Due to the large area, they wanted to ask their classmates for help. However, Seung Hyun was busy practicing driving with Yoon Kang, and Arai and Kim Tak chose to stay at school, leaving no available reinforcements. Luckily, the next day, Bum Ju finally located the correct convenience store. After checking the store's security footage, they identified the red-hatted culprit, Lee Si-hyun, who lived nearby and frequently shipped packages from that location. As the three took a break, a truck pulled up. The driver was Yoon Kang. She was practicing driving and didn't know where to go, coincidentally arriving at the same location Ju Young's group was investigating. Seung Hyun, acting as her instructor, had been nagging her throughout the drive. Feeling frustrated, Yoon Kang received a comforting kiss from him, which Ju Young and the others happened to witness. After getting out of the truck, the couple went to a nearby convenience store. Looking up, they saw Ju Young, D-il, and Bum Ju. As the three questioned Yoon Kang and Seung Hyun about their presence there, Lee Si-hyun appeared, carrying a pile of packages into the store. Ju Young and D-il immediately dropped their interrogation and sprang into action, splitting up to surround the suspect. However, he wasn't the mastermind. He was being coerced by the real culprit to ship the packages. Ju Young wanted to call the police, but a terrified Lee Si-hyun begged them not to, offering to compensate Ju Young for the money. He explained that the real perpetrator was dangerous, and he feared for his life if they involved the police. Yoon Kang felt he was also a victim and that taking his money wouldn't stop the online scams. She convinced Lee Si-hyun to provide the perpetrator's whereabouts, promising she and her friends would catch him and free Lee Si-hyun from his grasp. However, their amateur surveillance was quickly discovered when Lee Si-hyun lured the perpetrator out. A chase ensued through the streets, but the perpetrator ultimately escaped. Afterward, despite Yoon Kang's attempts, Lee Si-hyun became unresponsive. That evening, as Seung-hyun walked Yoon Kang home, they kissed in front of her house, only to be seen by her older sister arriving home. Back at school, the students were divided into groups of 3 for internships at local police stations. Kim Tak, Yoon Kang, and Seung-hyun formed a team. Lieutenant Jin, a stern, unsmiling man, was assigned to oversee Yoon Kang's patrol. Feeling intimidated, Yoon Kang carefully followed his instructions. Seung-hyun was assigned cleaning duties, while Kim Tak accompanied the kind Lieutenant Oh. While shopping, they helped a disoriented elderly woman home. At her house, Lieutenant Oh noticed many belongings of a younger person, including bills and other items. Upon questioning, they learned the woman's grandson had been gone for a month, only sending occasional texts. The grandson, bruised and battered, was at an internet cafe. It was Lee Si-hyun. Back at school, Kim Tak told Yoon Kang about the elderly woman and showed her a photo of her and her grandson, hoping Yoon Kang might see him during her patrols. Yoon Kang immediately recognized Lee Si-hyun. She rushed to a nearby store to check the security footage from that day. Sure enough, she saw Lee Si-hyun being assaulted. Because of the time spent reviewing the footage, Yoon Kang was late for her patrol and was reprimanded by Lieutenant Jin. Undeterred, Yoon Kang continued searching for Lee Si-hyun. During her lunch break, she boarded a bus heading towards the district. At noon, the security guard at the police university called Han-na, saying someone was looking for her. When Han-na arrived at the gate, she was confronted by a group of older men and women who immediately swarmed and attacked her. Fortunately, D-il happened to be passing by and intervened, shielding Han-na and creating an escape route. Shaken and terrified, Han-na hid in a corner of the training grounds. She frantically called her mother, but no one answered. As she sobbed, D-il approached. Fighting back tears, she pleaded with him not to tell anyone what happened. D-il agreed. Yoon Kang arrived at the street where Lee Si-hyun had been attacked. Following the security camera footage, she finally found a lead. Thanks to her connections with the traffic police, they readily provided her with access to their cameras. After reviewing the footage, Yoon Kang identified the vehicle that had taken Lee Si-hyun away. At that moment, Seung-hyun called. Learning she had a lead on the perpetrator, he immediately brought Kim Tak to the district. At a karaoke bar, just as the perpetrator left, Yoon Kang, Seung-hyun, and Kim Tak arrived. The 3 entered and engaged in a fierce fight with his underlings. Seeing this, the perpetrator fled. Yoon Kang chased after him, trying to prevent him from getting into his car, but he pushed her to the ground and escaped. Just then, Lieutenant Jin called Yoon Kang. She had sent him the photo from the traffic camera and explained the situation. Lieutenant Jin arrived to assist Yoon Kang and Seung-hyun, ultimately cornering the perpetrator in a dead end. The culprit was taken to the police station. Lee Si-hyun was rescued and returned to his grandmother. After solving the case, all 3 were commended by the police university. That evening, to celebrate, a group of students went to a bar to dance. When Seung-hyun went to the restroom, he accidentally bumped into a girl. They mistakenly took each other's phones. Seung-hyun returned to his seat and realized he had the wrong phone. When he borrowed Yoon Kang's phone to call his own number, the girl, in a disoriented state, was being harassed by Jo Han-sol. This man was Jo Han-sol, a famous motivational speaker. The girl went to find Jo Han-sol, intending to use the video on the phone footage of him harassing another girl to blackmail him. However, being alone, she was overpowered by Jo Han-sol. Jo Han-sol calmly answered the incoming call. After understanding the situation, he told his secretary to exchange phones with Seung-hyun. Unexpectedly, upon seeing him, the secretary recognized Seung-hyun as the person in the truck that almost hit Jo Han-sol's car the previous day. After the incident, both of them went to see Jo Han-sol and apologized. But Jo Han-sol, having close ties with the X-Society, wouldn't make things difficult for police university students. Moreover, he had also investigated and discovered that Seung-hyun was the son of the chief of police. The matter was ultimately swept under the rug. Another day, while Yoon Kang and Seung-hyun were on a date, They ran into Yoon Kang's older sister. She was upset because a friend had stolen 2 million won from her. Hearing that Yoon Kang and Seung Hyan had been to the Mai Kang bar the week before, her sister showed them a picture of her friend, asking if they might have seen her there. Unexpectedly, upon seeing the picture, Seung Hyan recognized her as the girl he had bumped into at the bar. He immediately called Jo Han Sol's secretary using the number on the business card to ask about the girl's whereabouts, but the secretary claimed to not know. In reality, Secretary Shin was at the girl's house at that moment, searching for the video she had recorded. D-Il, since the celebratory evening at the bar, had become infatuated with Han Na after seeing her beautiful dancing. He wanted to progress his relationship with her, but the messages he sent were like stones sinking into the ocean. After some consideration, D-Il decided to invite his friends on a trip to the coastal area near Han Na's home, hoping to invite her along. Unfortunately, Han Na had to go home to help her mother with some matters and politely declined the invitation. Elsewhere, Jo Han Sol was fishing with high-ranking officials of the Sinew Society, diligently catering to them and keeping them entertained. However, Seung Hyan's father wasn't like that. Although Jo Han Sol's father's business had plummeted when the Sinew Society came into power, Seung Hyan's father didn't trust Jo Han Sol because he had been a drug addict. Jo Han Sol was also tired of attending to these high-ranking officials. He believed that with his current power and status, he didn't need to bow down to them. He believed that one day, he would rise above them all. That day, the weather was pleasant, and D-Il's group of friends arrived at the coastal area for their trip. However, his arrangements left everyone speechless as they kept circling historical sites. Finally, the others expressed their desire to go to the beach, leaving D-Il feeling utterly defeated. He angrily left on his own. The others headed for the beach, laughing and enjoying themselves, temporarily forgetting about D-Il. Meanwhile, Seung Hyan made an excuse to take Yoon Kang away, enjoying some alone time together. At this point, Yoon Kang asked about what Jo Han Sol had said at his office, specifically about Seung Hyan's father being the chief of police. Hearing this, Seung Hyan had to admit it. Yoon Kang was very surprised by this revelation. Elsewhere, the couple Kim Tak and Arai were sunbathing on the beach. Arai asked him about the scar on his waist. Kim Tak explained that during his training, he refused to follow the coach's instructions to let another person win, and was later retaliated against by that senior. After hearing this, Arai cried. She hoped that Kim Tak would definitely become a police officer and thoroughly purge all corruption. While their classmates were happily pairing off and enjoying themselves, D-Il boarded a bus alone. He accidentally overslept and missed his stop. Upon getting off, he saw Han Na and her mother arguing by the roadside. Her mother even slapped her. Embarrassed at being seen by D-Il, Han Na ran off. D-Il followed her. They ended up at a cafe with an ocean view. Han Na wondered why D-Il always seemed to find her at her lowest moments. D-Il replied that there was a strange fate between them. In truth, D-Il had noticed Han Na since the beginning of school, finding her the most beautiful girl among the female students. But her aloof demeanor kept others at a distance. He always sensed a tension within her. He hadn't understood why before, but after seeing her mother, he realized Han Na was worried about her. He acknowledged her mother's difficult and unruly behavior, but also her inability to sever ties with her. His words touched Han Na's heart, bringing her to tears. As night fell, D-Il brought Han Na to the beach to join their classmates. Before eating, everyone raised their glasses for a toast. Han Na suddenly thanked D-Il for what he had done for her. These ambiguous words led the others to speculate about their relationship. D-Il admitted they were dating, then immediately claimed he was joking. Everyone raised their glasses. Han Na, rarely seen smiling, finally did. Yoon Kang happily watched Han Na, feeling that regardless of what happened between her and D-Il, this was the most relaxed she had ever seen her. After dinner, everyone gathered for a barbecue and singing. Yoon Kang, sleepy, yawned and stretched. Seeing this, Seung Hyan reached out and held her hand from behind. Yoon Kang was startled, glancing around, afraid of being seen. When no one was looking, they discreetly touched each other, exchanging loving glances, immensely happy. That night, a car stopped by the lighthouse on the beach. The secretary helped the girl out of the car and dumped her at a pre-arranged scene staged to look like drug use. The next morning, Seung Hyun and Yoon Kang woke up early to watch the sunrise. As the sun rose, they both made wishes. Seung Hyun wished to watch the sunrise with Yoon Kang the following year and every year after. He then placed a necklace around her neck. As they walked back to the hotel hand in hand, they discovered a body near the lighthouse. The police quickly arrived at the scene and questioned Yoon Kang and Seung Hyun as the ones who discovered the body. Nam-gi took note of Seung Hyun's name. He had previously investigated Seung Hyun and knew he was the chief's son. Soon, the autopsy results revealed the girl had died from a drug overdose, specifically a type commonly found in bars. Nam-gi recalled that when the body was discovered, Seung Hyun mentioned seeing the girl at the bar, where she seemed distressed, as if being chased. He also remembered that the secretary, Shin, was with her at the time, there to exchange phones. Nam-gi immediately wrote down the phone number for his subordinate to investigate the secretary's background. At home, D-il was injured when he was hit by a stone from his grandfather's collection. After being admitted to the hospital, he immediately called Han-na, hoping to gain her sympathy and close the distance between them. But Han-na spent her days off tutoring to earn money. Despite her busy schedule, she still spoke to D-il briefly. After hanging up, D-il sent her a message, hoping they could video call next time, because he wanted to see her. He playfully added that if she answered his video call next time, they would be dating. Upon learning of D-il's hospitalization, their classmates rushed to visit him. Though they came, their gifts were underwhelming. Finally, Arai offered the cookies she had baked for Kim Tak. Because they were so delicious, everyone ate, even Kim Tak's share, much to Arai's dismay. After their visit to the hospital, the group encountered Jo Han-sol and Secretary Shin. They exchanged pleasantries. Suddenly, Seung Hyun called the secretary back and asked, "Did the police question you for their investigation?" This question startled Jo Han-sol. Inside the elevator, Jo Han-sol angrily demanded of Secretary Shin, what exactly happened? Secretary Shin revealed that Seung Hyun was the one who discovered the girl's body and had reported it to the police. He also admitted to being with the girl a few days prior. Jo Han-sol's expression turned menacing. He threatened the secretary, ordering him to find the video the girl recorded as soon as possible. This ticking time bomb couldn't be allowed to exist. In reality, the secretary already had a lead on the video from a message Mai Kang had sent to the girl. The message revealed the girl had an electronic diary that Mai Kang was temporarily keeping for her. The secretary called Mai Kang, claiming the diary was his computer and asking for its return. Initially, Mai Kang didn't think much of it. As she was taking the computer outside, she ran into Yoon Kang. After learning the situation, Yoon Kang became suspicious. She told Mai Kang to confirm the diary belonged to the girl before returning it. However, Secretary Shin couldn't provide the computer's password. His lie was exposed. Undeterred, Secretary Shin sent a subordinate disguised as a network technician to try and swap the computer with an identical one. Luckily, at the crucial moment, Yoon Kang noticed. With her father's help, they secured the computer. Yoon Kang brought the computer back to school. She ran into Seung Hyun and brought him and another friend to a lounge area. Carefully taking out the girl's electronic diary, she said, "Several people have tried to steal this computer, so I think there must be something important inside." To crack the password, the three called Ju Young for advice. However, Ju Young wasn't a hacker and could only suggest they try different number combinations. After a long night, Seung Hyun guessed the correct password. They found a video file. It showed disoriented men and women, their reflections visible in a glass surface. Seung Hyun saw the girl's reflection and guessed that this wasn't a video of her being threatened, but rather a video she had taken to threaten others. Nam-gi also quickly found background information on Secretary Shin, learning he worked for Jo Han-sol. At this point, Seung Hyun called Nam-gi. They had found the video, but it was encrypted and couldn't be sent. They needed Nam-gi to come in person. Nam-gi set off, telling Seung Hyun, "Don't show the video to anyone before I arrive." After taking Yoon Kang home, Seung Hyun returned with the computer, unaware that a car was following him. That evening, Yoon Kang received an alert from her father's watch. she suddenly remembered someone wearing a watch in the video, a watch that seemed familiar. She recalled a picture she'd seen of a Rai sitting with Jo Han Sol on stage during a speaking engagement, a picture that emphasized Jo Han Sol's custom-made, one-of-a-kind watch. Yoon Kang realized the watch in the video belonged to Jo Han Sol. She immediately told Seung Hyun, who compared it to the picture and confirmed the man in the video was indeed Jo Han Sol. Yoon Kang suggested that instead of waiting for Nam-gi, they should give the computer to Seung Hyun's father. He was both a high-ranking police officer and Seung Hyun's relative, making him more trustworthy than Nam-gi. Seung Hyun considered this and agreed. He turned over the computer to his father, saying, "I found out the man in the video is Jo Han Sol." Seung Hyun's father closed the computer and told him to keep it a secret from his friends. "Leave the rest to me." Seeing his father take charge, Seung Hyun texted Nam-gi, telling him he didn't need to come. Nam-gi reacted strongly. He called Seung Hyun, exclaiming, "Your father's character is not to be trusted." He then rushed to the park where Seung Hyun was waiting. At that moment, Seung Hyun had just finished a night shift. While waiting for Nam-gi, he spotted two figures in the distance. One was Jo Han Sol's secretary, the other, his own father. It turned out his father had just retrieved a computer and handed it over to Jo Han Sol. The two were in cahoots. Even though his father disliked Jo Han Sol, he was protecting him. After the exchange, the two left the park one after the other. Jo Han Sol noticed Seung Hyun and flashed a smug grin. His car passed by Nam-gi's as he was arriving. Nam-gi urged Seung Hyun to immediately retrieve the computer because he didn't understand how his father operated. This statement deeply troubled Seung Hyun. Upon questioning, Nam-gi revealed the connection between Seung Hyun's father and Jo Han Sol. 11 years ago, Nam-gi, while investigating Jo Han Sol's father's corruption case, collaborated with the narcotics unit where Seung Hyun's father worked. Since Seung Hyun's father had been keeping tabs on Jo Han Sol's drug trafficking for a while, the two arranged for a police academy student, Kim Hyun-soo, to go undercover. Because Seung Hyun's father needed the list related to the case, he didn't hesitate to put Kim Hyun-soo in danger. Ultimately, Kim Hyun-soo's identity was exposed, and he was murdered by Jo Han Sol. Before dying, Kim Hyun-soo, still dedicated to his duty, hid a memory card containing evidence inside his wound. However, Seung Hyun's father used this evidence, traded a life for power, to gain access to sinew and climb the ranks. Hearing this, Seung Hyun couldn't accept his father's actions. Nam-gi advised him to confront his father. By then, the computer was in Jo Han Sol's possession. Because of this, Seung Hyun skipped school the next day and arranged to meet his father. He asked about the computer, but his father lied, saying he had given it to the investigation team and told him not to worry. As he spoke, he remained calm and composed. Then, Seung Hyun revealed he had met with Officer Nam-gi and heard about the special relationship between him and Jo Han Sol. Upon hearing this, his father's smile vanished, and he fell silent. Nam-gi's words, combined with what he had witnessed the night before his father and Jo Han Sol together, made it difficult for Seung Hyun to trust his father's motives. Meanwhile, Yoon Kang grew worried after not hearing from Seung Hyun all day. He, however, didn't know how to face her and explain the connection between his father and Jo Han Sol, so he hung up. Distraught, Seung Hyun returned to school where he got into an altercation with a passerby and was detained. Unwilling to call his family, he contacted Professor Cha to bail him out. In reality, Professor Cha knew the reason for Seung Hyun's distress because Nam-gi had called and told him that he had revealed the truth about Seung Hyun's father. Professor Cha also knew about the incident from 11 years ago, as the three of them had been on the same team. Seung Hyun spent the night at Professor Cha's house. He comforted Seung Hyun, suggesting that perhaps his father had his reasons, just not ones he wanted to share with his son. The next day, in forensic class, after finishing the theoretical lecture, Professor Cha had the students analyze fingerprints left behind. One student discovered unusual fingerprints on the door. Judging by their position, they belonged to a couple who had been intimate there. This deduction made Rai and Kim Tak uneasy because, when no one was around, they had leaned against the door and kissed. However, Professor Cha stopped the student from further speculating about the couple's identity. Despite this, Ju Young became intrigued. After class, she continued her investigation. Based on the freshness of the prints, they were definitely left within the last 2 days. Since the break had just ended and the room had recently been used, the couple must have kissed during class time. Finally, after some questioning, Ju Young got Kim Tak to admit that he and Arai were the mystery couple. Their secret romance was exposed. While Kim Tak and Arai were in their honeymoon phase, Yoon Kang still couldn't reach Seung Hyan. Left with no other choice, she asked Professor Cha for help. Professor Cha took Yoon Kang to his dormitory, but they discovered Seung Hyan had already left. It turned out Seung Hyan had gone alone to confront Jo Han Sol. Even with the computer destroyed and despite himself and his classmates having watched the video, he was determined to find a way to incriminate Jo Han Sol. Late that night, Seung Hyan returned to Professor Cha's house. He stumbled upon a photo in a notebook tucked away in a drawer. In it, besides Nam Gi's father and Professor Cha, was a young man, Kim Hyun-soo. On the back of the photo, an inscription read, Kim Hyun-soo 33rd class. He remembered Kim Tak mentioning that his older brother had the same name and graduating class as Kim Hyun-soo. Seung Hyan asked Professor Cha to confirm if Kim Hyun-soo was indeed Kim Tak's brother. Professor Cha told Seung Hyan that Kim Tak still didn't know his brother had died in the line of duty. He also admitted that Nam Gi was right. Seung Hyan's father had betrayed Kim Hyun-soo. Meanwhile, Jo Han Sol sought out Kim Tak and told him about his brother's incident years ago. He revealed that Kim Hyun-soo, working undercover, had been exposed by Seung Hyan's father, leading to his death. Kim Tak immediately went to Seung Hyan's house to confront his father. As the two argued, Seung Hyan arrived home. Because of his father's actions, a rift formed between Kim Tak and Seung Hyan. The two parted ways in a tense atmosphere. Seung Hyan was deeply disappointed in his father. Overnight, his idol had transformed into a corrupt cop. This shock shattered Seung Hyan's trust. After the new semester began, Kim Tak requested a dormitory change. At school, he avoided any interaction with Seung Hyan. The conflict between the two puzzled the other students. Yoon Kang also noticed that ever since Seung Hyan took the computer, he had become increasingly withdrawn. He wasn't answering calls, nor was he proactively reporting on the investigation, clearly troubled. Yoon Kang wanted to support him, but Seung Hyan, unable to be honest, once again rejected her concern. After learning the truth about his brother's case, Kim Tak became disillusioned with law enforcement. He submitted a withdrawal form to Professor Cha. Kim Tak's despair tormented Professor Cha, as he was the one who had initially suggested Hyun-soo go undercover. Someone had to be held accountable for Kim Hyun-soo's death. Professor Cha didn't want to hide any longer. He arranged to meet with Seung Hyan's father to address a nagging question. Years ago, during the operation, Professor Cha had overheard him on the phone telling someone that the police informant was Kim Hyun-soo. Who was that call to? Seeing Professor Cha's suspicion, Seung Hyan's father tried to dismiss it as a misunderstanding. Just then, another police officer joined them at the bar. With someone else present, Professor Cha felt it inappropriate to continue the conversation. That night, Seung Hyan's father drank heavily. Drunk, he asked the other officer if he was the one who had leaked the information to Jo Han Sol. It turned out that the phone call years ago had been to this very officer. The officer scoffed. He said there was no point in digging up the past. Back then, they had no other choice. The corruption list included high-ranking officials within Sineo. Torn between personal gain and his duty, Seung Hyan's father had struggled. But because the list also included high-ranking police officers, he ultimately chose to compromise to protect the image of the police force in the public eye. He didn't want a few corrupt individuals to bring down his innocent colleagues. Due to the incident with the computer, Jo Han Sol knew the police academy students had seen the video. So, he began to interfere within the school. He not only instigated Kim Tak to keep tabs on Seung Hyan and Yoon Kang, but also planned to bribe students to plant spies within the school. Meanwhile, Kim Tak quietly left the academy, leaving only a note for Arai. He refused to answer any calls. Yoon Kang found Seung Hyan's reaction strange. Even upon hearing the news of Kim Tak's withdrawal, he remained unmoved. But in reality, Seung Hyan was also suffering. He blamed himself for Kim Tak dropping out. He even wrote his own withdrawal form, hoping his departure would bring Kim Tak back. Yoon Kang tried several times to talk to Seung Hyun, but he seemed apprehensive. She insisted he get in her car. On the way, she learned they were rushing to Kim Tak's house. Yoon Kang believed avoiding the issue wasn't the solution. If there was a conflict, it needed to be addressed. She was willing to stand by Seung Hyun and give him courage. When they met, Seung Hyun apologized for his father's wrongdoings against Kim Tak's family. Logically, Kim Tak could understand Seung Hyun, but emotionally, he couldn't. After a few words, he asked them to leave, refusing to talk further. Because of this meeting, Yoon Kang finally understood the conflict between Seung Hyun and Kim Tak, and his disappointment in his father. She reassured him that it wasn't his fault. She suggested that perhaps both he and Kim Tak were too young and impulsive and needed time to calm down. There was no rush, as she would always be there for him. Hearing Yoon Kang's comforting words, Seung Hyun finally smiled. It had been a while. Just then, he received a call from D-Il. It turned out he had started moonlighting as a designated driver to help Han Na pay off her mother's debts. That day, he accepted a well-paying gig. After arriving at the designated parking lot, he waited, but the client never showed. Bored, he called Seung Hyun to pass the time. Suddenly, he heard banging and a woman's screams coming from a nearby villa. Following his police instincts, D-Il went to investigate. Inside, a group of shady-looking men and women were wildly dancing. A woman in a white dress sat on the floor. There was blood on the ground. D-Il tried to observe further, but was offered money to leave. However, he wasn't swayed. His sense of justice compelled him to return to the villa and record a video of a man assaulting the woman. Unfortunately, he was discovered by other men inside. D-Il fled. A car chase ensued along the mountain roads. Mid-chase, Seung Hyun called. D-Il wanted to ask for help, but speeding down the road, he couldn't relay the situation. Ultimately, he couldn't withstand the pursuit and the attacker's assault. His car was forced off the road, plunging into the river. The doors were locked. D-Il couldn't escape and desperately remained trapped inside. Slowly, he closed his eyes. The school held a funeral for D-Il. His classmates were heartbroken, especially Han Na. The night before D-Il's accident, she had been angry with him for giving her money. Han Na had always faced the ugliness of the world alone. Having someone suddenly care for her made her heart fearful and vulnerable. She feared D-Il's pity. She still owed him an apology and a response to his confession. She never expected him to die so suddenly. After the funeral, a group gathered to remember D-Il and discuss the car accident. Although the cause of death was drowning, many questions remained. First, the record for the sunken car couldn't be found. Second, during the phone call, D-Il urgently told Seung Hyun he was in serious trouble. Seung Hyun recalled hearing a flurry of honking in the background. This meant another car must have been near him. Finding the car that honked was the first step to understanding what happened. The next day, Seung Hyun and Yoon Kang went to the police station. However, the police would only release information to family or lawyers. In reality, the video evidence was no longer at the station. Jo Han-sol's secretary had used his connections within the department to erase all the data. But Jo Han-sol wasn't at ease. He had heard that the deceased driver was Seung Hyun's friend. He remembered Seung Hyun's determined gaze. He was the type who, once committed to catching a criminal, would never give up. To Jo Han-sol, Seung Hyun was a troublesome character. He told his secretary to quickly bribe someone inside the school to facilitate the surveillance of Seung Hyun. The secretary contacted Han Na about this, but she refused. After D-Il's death, whenever Han Na missed him, she would look at their chat history. D-Il had shared a photo album with her. Han Na opened the website, tenderly looking at D-Il when he was still alive. But the latest uploaded video stopped her smile. It was the video D-Il secretly filmed outside the mansion that day. Han Na called her classmates to her room to watch. The final scene of the video stopped on a face. This person was Jo Han-sol's secretary. Seung Hyun immediately realized that D-Il's case was related to the filming of the video, and that Jo Han-sol was also involved. His friends immediately wanted to go to the police, but Seung Hyun stopped them. Then, he revealed the connection between Jo Han-sol and the Sinyu group, as well as the feud between his father and Kim Tak. At this point, his friends finally understood, especially Arai. She finally understood why Kim Tak suddenly dropped out of school. But now, they couldn't rely on the police. What could these students do? In their confusion, they decided to seek help from Professor Cha. Professor Cha, after watching the video, felt the gravity of the situation. He pointed out that the people in the video were all members of the Sineo group. He would investigate first and told the students to keep the information confidential. A week passed in a blink of an eye, but there was still no news from Professor Cha. This made the students begin to suspect that he had also become a member of the group. Faced with this situation, Yoon Kang suggested that they shouldn't wait passively, but should take the initiative. The next day, D-Il's video spread online. Because all the people appearing in the video were high-ranking officials, society was in an uproar. Related investigations were quickly launched. Through investigation, the police determined that the source of the leaked video was the police university. Professor Cha didn't know what to do about Yoon Kang and Seung Hyan's recklessness. They thought this would force their superiors to investigate, but unexpectedly, it would make it easier for Jo Han-sol to escape punishment. Sure enough, after the incident, Jo Han-sol shifted all the blame onto his secretary. He bought airtime on a television program to clear his name. Seeing the direction of public opinion, the students understood that Jo Han-sol was about to escape. At this moment, Kim Tak walked in, announcing his return to investigate with everyone. It turned out that Seung Hyan had sent him a message, saying that the person who turned D-Il to gold dust and Kim Tak's brother were part of the same group. Now, both of them wanted revenge and justice for their loved ones and friends. He hoped that Kim Tak could return and join forces with everyone. Thus, Seung Hyan and Kim Tak's friendship was rekindled. His relationship with Arai also improved. Everyone sat down to discuss how to find more evidence to deal with Jo Han-sol and his accomplices. At this time, Yoon Kang thought about the women who were bullied in the video. They might have been coerced by Jo Han-sol, and the evidence could come from these women themselves. Seung Hyan quickly contacted the police, pleading for help. If they couldn't press their advantage at this time, they feared that Jo Han-sol would be helped again by the Sineo group and escape through their dark deeds. Nam-gi was also eager to arrest Jo Han-sol and finally agreed to cooperate with Seung Hyan. He started running around looking for the woman in the video. Unexpectedly, Jo Han-sol's subordinates discovered that Nam-gi and Seung Hyan were cooperating, so they sent assassins to attack. Nam-gi was seriously injured and lay in a coma in the hospital. Seeing that their best helper had also been harmed by Jo Han-sol, Seung Hyan and Yoon Kang had to find the woman themselves and try to persuade her. They took out a photo of Yoon Kang's deceased friend. It turned out that she and this woman were close friends for many years. Knowing that her best friend was also harmed by Jo Han-sol, the woman's heart was finally moved. Today, Han Na received another message from Jo Han-sol's subordinate, inviting her to become an informant. Han Na quickly replied to the message, revealing that the woman would go to the police station to report tomorrow. Sure enough, the next day, Jo Han-sol's subordinates were waiting at the entrance of the police station. As soon as the woman appeared, she was taken away. In a nightclub, Jo Han-sol was preparing to torture her. But unexpectedly, when the hood was removed, it was Yoon Kang. This was a dangerous and audacious plan. Without any outside help, Yoon Kang decided to enter the lion's den, using herself as bait to obtain Jo Han-sol's confession. Seung Hyan was the first to object. Once in Jo Han-sol's hands, she could lose her life. But Yoon Kang remained steadfast, focused on their ultimate goal. She was willing to risk everything, unwilling to miss any opportunity to bring Jo Han-sol to justice. Yoon Kang successfully allowed herself to be captured and taken to the nightclub. Seung Hyan pretended to pursue them, leaving a tracking device on their car. The others drove a different car and followed closely behind. Inside their car was a monitoring device. The other end was clipped to Yoon Kang's collar. When Jo Han-sol saw Yoon Kang, murderous intent flared in his eyes. He figured she was as good as dead anyway. He gave Yoon Kang the opportunity to say her last words. Yoon Kang knew this was her last chance to get Jo Han-sol's confession. She had to handle Jo Han-sol skillfully. Therefore, Yoon Kang utilized the psychology courses she'd taken at the police academy and began to analyze Jo Han Sol's personality. Yoon Kang knew that people like Jo Han Sol loved attention, were incredibly narcissistic, and fiercely competitive. She deliberately provoked him, mocking him by saying that without relying on bribery, he was nothing but useless, even less capable than his secretary. Yoon Kang designed these words to make Jo Han Sol lose control, because when a person loses control, they're more likely to reveal the truth. Sure enough, upon hearing Yoon Kang's words, Jo Han Sol's anger instantly erupted. He lunged forward, furiously pulling at Yoon Kang's clothes, shouting that everything his secretary had done was under his orders, that he was in absolute control. At this moment, Jo Han Sol discovered the listening device on Yoon Kang's collar. But it seemed he had been prepared. After destroying the listening device, he showed Yoon Kang a view of the parking garage. His subordinates were rushing towards her classmate's car, and a fierce fight broke out. Although the students temporarily held their own against the thugs, a second wave quickly arrived. Seung Hyun and the others had no choice but to temporarily retreat. Seeing Yoon Kang's companions flee, Jo Han Sol laughed maniacally, taunting Yoon Kang. In this world, aside from money, nothing can be trusted. After saying that, he opened the room's door. Han Na appeared at the doorway with an indifferent expression. Jo Han Sol handed a wooden club to Han Na, telling her to teach her classmate a lesson. Han Na took the club, but swung it hard at Jo Han Sol. It turned out Han Na had become a double agent. She pretended to accept the offer from Jo Han Sol's subordinate, taking the money to monitor Seung Hyun's actions. But in reality, she was reporting these actions to Seung Hyun and Yoon Kang. Meanwhile, in the parking garage, the student's car had escaped Jo Han Sol's surveillance area. They stopped the car, got out, and threw tear gas at the thugs. After subduing them, everyone immediately went upstairs to the nightclub. At this time, Professor Cha called a Rai. Only then did he learn about the students' audacious actions. After Seung Hyun activated the fire alarm in the nightclub, he kicked down the door to Jo Han Sol's private room. Seeing this, Jo Han Sol immediately fled to the parking garage. Kim Tak and Seung Hyun chased after him, engaging in a fierce fight in the parking lot. In the end, Jo Han Sol lost. He was knocked to the ground by Seung Hyun. Then, the sirens wailed. Seung Hyun's father arrived just in time with the police. He tossed Seung Hyun a pair of handcuffs, his face showing no mercy for Jo Han Sol. Jo Han Sol continued to threaten him. If he were caught, Seung Hyun's father wouldn't escape punishment either. But Seung Hyun's father had seen the light, preferring to lose everything rather than collude with him any longer. Fortunately, the final case of his police career would be bringing Jo Han Sol to justice. Before leaving, his father told Seung Hyun, "Take good care of your mother. Because next, I will have to undergo investigation and go to jail. But I'm happy that you haven't lost your dream of becoming a police officer. Seung Hyun, now, you have become my pride." Professor Cha also arrived at the scene, reprimanding the other students if he hadn't learned about their plan in time and called for help. Who knows what kind of danger these kids would have faced. Because Jo Han Sol was under investigation, the high-ranking officials of the Sinew group were also arrested one after another. That day, the classmates who participated in the operation gathered at Yoon Kang's family's chicken restaurant, raising their glasses in celebration. But looking at the empty chair and untouched glass of water, everyone's mood turned somber. Although D-Il was gone, his courage continued to guide them in their fight. It was because he sacrificed his life to film the video that this moment of exposing corruption was possible. At that moment, the TV was broadcasting the news of Seung Hyun's father undergoing investigation. A sense of loss welled up in Seung Hyun's heart, and he went outside for some air. Yoon Kang followed him out. She hugged Seung Hyun. "At least, in the final moment, your father didn't disappoint you. He became the hero you always admired." After undergoing investigation, Seung Hyun's father provided a detailed list of the Sinew group's bribery targets. In fact, they were all aimed at high-ranking police officers. Overnight, all the high-ranking police officers resigned, including the president of the police academy. But he didn't resent these kids. On the contrary, he believed that the hope of the future rested on their shoulders. In a blink, 3 years passed. The students who caused such a commotion that year had graduated. As they loudly took their oath, everyone wore their police badges. Graduation was the culmination of a dream. It carried the hopes of their families and friends, the expectations of Seung Hyan's father, the pride of Yoon Kang's parents, and the unfinished ideals of Kim Hyun-soo and D-il. But graduation was also the starting point of an arduous journey of practice. From here on out, these young people would enter the real police force and face the harsh realities of society. After the graduation ceremony, beside the stadium, Seung Hyan waited for Yoon Kang. They kissed. If they hadn't gone through those hazy and dark days, they wouldn't have become each other's light. The new police officers walked cheerfully, leaving the police academy together. No matter how difficult the road ahead, they would always walk hand in hand. From here, a brighter future began.